Hi there, Perennial Pride listeners. Thanks for joining me on this podcast. So, as I'm recording this, we're getting close to the holiday season. It's crazy to even think about how quickly time flies. And I heard this the other day. It was like, the days seem long, but the decades seem so fast. And I think I agree with that. I look at my kids and see how they've grown so quickly, but time does fly. But, this is where it's so important to try to make the most of every single day. And this is what I try to do and maximize my days on this earth, because we never know. We don't know when we're going to leave it. So at least try to make the most out of it and be good and kind to others and try to be productive. And frankly, when I think about trying to be productive, whether it be in work or relationships, certainly our wealth building, a lot of it comes down to some basics around habits. Like, what are you doing on a daily basis that can create some productivity in your life, and just like finance, compound over time, right? And things don't always result. You don't see results always immediately in whatever you're doing in your work, your health, finances, but it's really important to build the right habits, so you are building off and progressing in whatever it is you're trying to achieve in life. And, I think most of the days we kind of can easily get into a robotic state where our habits take over most of what we're doing, right? Think about brushing your teeth, right? I'm not thinking about brushing my teeth, hopefully, that much, because I figured out a good way to do it and becomes a good habit, etc. And so those are the important things we have to kind of get our head around. Like, are we adopting some great habits? And if we are adopting bad ones, how do we get out of that rut? I mean, we all are creatures of habit. And depending on where we fall into those habits could be good or bad for us. And, that definitely relates to kind of the impact we have, the enjoyment of life. And so it's really something to be mindful of, because we want to simplify our lives. We want to get systems in place, processes that we don't have to think about, but, are they the right ones? And, I was thinking about that more recently as I was rereading Becoming Your Own Banker, which is a book by Nelson Nash. I'll put it in the show notes. Really good book, and really helps people think about how to, finance everything in our lives. It's something that, I adopted for myself in my own personal life and help people with. But, as part of that book, it isn't just about finances. It touches on human behavior. And sometimes we can get in our own way. It's amazing to think. And I'm as guilty as anyone. So we always have to be mindful of the things we're doing. Are we doing the things that are really helping us progress in our lives? And when I think about human behavior, and Nelson Nash touches on two that I want to talk about a little bit more in detail and how it impacts us. And human behaviors that really can hurt us if we're not really paying attention to them. So the one behavior they mentions, this concept of the arrival syndrome. And really what this is hinting at is that, we can get to a certain stage in life and we feel like we've learned a lot and come far in whatever aspect of our lives, and that we stop learning, right? We feel like we've made it, we figured things out completely, that there's nothing that's going to be better. There's no point in even looking into it anymore, or researching, or being open-minded about it. And we can lose sight of improvements and opportunities that really could improve what we're doing. And unfortunately, we can get into that way because life is crazy, right? We have a lot of things that are competing for our attention, time, and effort. And so I understand that there's certain things in our life that if we made it better, it wouldn't make a material difference in our lives. But, there are a lot of things that can, and there's a lot of different ways to do things, certainly as it relates to our personal finances. But we can get so enamored with what we consider is the conventional wisdom and typical advice that, may not want to entertain new ways of doing things. There's a saying that goes in here: if you really understood what was happening, you'd know what to do. Unfortunately, in the personal financial space, there's so much noise going on, so much information, that I think it almost makes it impossible for people to figure things out. It just makes it hard. And so it's probably certainly a lot easier to say, okay, well, I know what I know. comfortable with the situation and I don't want to expand and learn more with it. Unfortunately, it does potentially lead to people not building the wealth that they really want to because they're not open-minded to learning more or growing more. And so, a great habit that I think is, we talk about my kids in school, they're finishing up their before college, like in high school, middle school, and that they're not, they're learning the basics, but they're actually learning how to learn. And that's a lifelong journey. So, obviously when you look at some of the stats around CEOs who become, successful, what they do is they're constantly reading, they're constantly learning and building upon their experiences and different viewpoints and helping empower them to be the best leader for their organization. Same with business owners. They're constantly learning, absorbing more. And it's really important that we try to avoid that human behavior of feeling like we've arrived. I think it's just like a tree. A tree doesn't want to stop growing. It's constantly growing or trying to. Maybe it reaches some point later in life, but it's wanting to grow. And so same with us as individuals, like we're on this earth for however long we're allowed to be here, that, that we should be in the mode of constantly learning and growing. So that, and habits of, say, reading a book, on a daily basis, or whatever it is, a podcast, whatever it is, your choice of learning or attending conferences on a periodic basis, even if you're in a job, right? How do I build up my skills and knowledge base that I can improve in areas of my life, and making that just a normal habit, right? Because we can easily go on the opposite side where we do none of that, right? And there's some crazy stat I saw that, a majority of people don't even read books in a given year. And so these are the areas that I think, from a habit, to evaluate whether I can build better habits to continue getting educated and investing in myself. And I always harp on this, that we're our number one assets. How do we continue to make our asset more valuable to our employer, to our business, to our employees, whatever the case may be, that we can continually grow and be more valuable to everyone around us and to our families, for sure. And so that requires taking effort to continuously learn and being humble enough to know that you haven't arrived, and that there's so much to learn from anyone you come across, regardless of age or education level, and being open to that. And personally, I've grown in that area too, because I felt I always I needed to figure everything out myself, that, I should be able to learn these things. But the reality is there's only so many hours in a day, and certain things I have interest in. And this is why it's so important to continue learning in the areas, but also be open to learning from others who maybe have different areas of expertise and knowledge and perspectives that can really shape your decision-making and your habits. So the arrival syndrome. So the second one that within that Nelson talks about that really resonates with me is this concept of Parkinson's law. And really the first part of it deals with work, right? So the thought is work expands to meet the time envelope allowed. And I remember days, certainly in college, like, right, I'll wait to the last minute to study for something, right? A big test or project. And I could have maybe saw it weeks ahead of time, but did nothing with it, because you give me that amount of time, the human behavior is naturally going to say, okay, I have time to deal with it. I'll take other priorities first, or I'll procrastinate, and then I'll spend the last amount of time I have left and get there and do the work I need to do. And whether it's a up all night studying type of thing, and so how do I get ahead of things and plan better and do things that don't require a mad rush at the end. So that I think is an inherent thing we have, right? We can procrastinate and wait to the last minute, or maybe not even plan right. As it relates to our finances, that planning part is a part of it. But one of the things that he highlights in there is that a luxury, once enjoyed, becomes a necessity. So, things in our lives where we come across them, and, whether it's cell phone or, that trip to, fancy trip to resort, that, may seem like a luxury, but then at some point you kind of say, well, that's that's just part of life, and that's the way it should be. So luxury or want becomes a need. That is actually pushing you down a different road where it's requiring more of your resources, and it changes your dynamic and how you kind of view those things, and makes it more pressing to build more wealth, to be able to support your basic life that maybe a decade ago was very different. And so I'm not saying that I think it's a good thing to want things and to have seek out things and strive for them, but to keep them in perspective of what they are. They are not a necessity, right? Food and air and all those things are, but we can easily get trapped into all the things in life, the external pressures, that all those things are absolutely now mandatory, but in reality they're luxuries, and treating them that way is a helpful sort of mindset to have around it, and get into a habit of saying those are luxuries. They're not going to they're going to be there as a treat or an extra in my life, but that they don't necessarily have to be a part of it all the time, and having that sort of discipline to be able to separate the two. And the last one was the expense rises to your income. And that's potentially somewhat related, right? Because as your income grows, obviously what naturally happens, I'm going to start spending more. I'm going to get the nicer car or the bigger home. And you kind of grow into these things. And then you're not saving as much, right? Or it stays stable. The hope is that if your incomes are growing, that your expenses are growing slower, and that you can save more, invest more, and solidify your financial lives. But a lot of people are just spending up to their income levels, and they're not saving anymore, right? They're not saving an increasing amount more. And so it takes them longer to amass some assets and be able to, retire if they really want to, but it gives them less options, and maybe it's more stressful because they got to keep on working just to sustain their lifestyle, right? We see this all the time. On the surface, someone may look extremely wealthy and have a lot of money, but in the surface, they're barely getting by week to week because they've built up a lifestyle that's just so expensive, built on luxuries, things that they want, and that have become necessities, and they can't save more over time. And that's a trap we can easily get into. So trying to be mindful of good habits of continually saving money, right? This is a very basic concept, and saving more as we grow in our incomes, right? And taking the discipline to say, hey, I'm going to put away this amount of X percent of my dollars. If I can take 20, 30% of my income, imagine what that could be over time. It gives you many more options down the road. But a lot of people end up spending a lot of their income. Maybe they get a raise or a windfall, and that money gets spent instead of saved and invested. So having the habit to pay yourself first, we talk about this all the time, is whether it's in a bank account or through high cash value life insurance, like saving money in a place that is safe and sound, accessible. And when built up enough, then start investing in things that and hopefully are assets that are, can bring you obviously growth, but also cash flow along the way, and learning about them. And that goes back to the first part around the arrival syndrome. Arrival syndrome is that you're continually learning and growing in not only your just broader aspects of life, but certainly your financial life, that you're learning to be a better investor, a better financial steward of your wealth over time, right? That doesn't happen overnight, but, making consistent strides to learn and develop in those areas, and reach out to other advisors to help you speed up your learning so that you can do more with your wealth and have more control over it. And so they all kind of go hand in hand here. And it stems back to the basics around what are we doing on a daily basis that, is good, are good habits to learn and invest in ourselves and think about our future, think long term. We build those habits that come over time and keeps us grounded, because we're going to always be thrown curveballs in life. Changes are going to happen. Life is constantly changing. You can set a plan today, and inevitably it's going to change potentially next week. So we have to prepare for those sorts of things, but having the right solid foundation in place, from how we save to our habits and how we spend and allocate our resources, will give us the highest chance to succeed and build the wealth that we all want for ourselves and our families, so we can make the impact we want on this earth and give us the most control and freedom of our lives. that's ultimately, I think, what most people want. But it comes with creating the great habits and sustaining them over the long run. So hopefully this gives you some food for thought for you to maybe evaluate some of the things you're doing, and certainly reach out if you want to help it as it relates to your personal finances, and evaluating, are the habits you're doing today, are they actually serving you or someone else? And so hopefully they're serving you, but if you ever need help, certainly reach out, and love to chat. And hopefully this is helpful, gets you sort of thinking about the end of year into the next year, of maybe evaluating your habits and seeing if there's changes that you think you might want to consider, and so you can help progress forward in your financial life and obtain the life that you truly want. So thanks for joining me on this podcast today, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for joining me on this episode today. I really am grateful for you as listeners to the Perennial Pride podcast. I hope you're getting some tremendous value out of it, and hopefully pushing you along your journey to financial freedom. I put this podcast together really to help you get more educated around your finances, so that you feel empowered to live the life that you really want. And if you like the content that you heard today or watched, then I would encourage you to go to my website, perennialpride.com. There's tons of other content there. And you can access my book, Wealth Beyond the Numbers. You can buy it there on my website. It's a aggregation of a lot of great tips and tools I've learned to not only build my wealth in my accounts, but build wealth in my life, and abundance and joy, and something that has a lot of my experiences in the journey that I've been on personally. Hopefully that can be also of value to you as you sort of move forward. So thanks again for being a Perennial Pride listener, and we'll see you on the next episode.